running a few minutes behind, so we'll go ahead and get started. And we'd like to welcome everybody to the August 2021 Columbia Chamber Issues Forum. My name is Mark James. I'm with Cypress Real Estate Partners and chairman of the Chamber's Public Policy Committee. We put these issues forums on monthly to discuss and look at and understand probably a little better, hopefully, critical issues that impact or potentially impact the business community in the Columbia area. And I got to tell you, this is weird. It's fun to be back in person for the first time in well over a year. And so we have continued to hold these forums monthly during the COVID and the time that we've been under sort of lockdown, but we've done it virtually and through Zoom and Facebook Live. So it is a real treat and a lot of good feelings that come with being back together. Today's meeting is a hybrid meeting. We are broadcasting it on Facebook Live and on Zoom as well. But welcome to everybody, both virtually and who's here in person, and we look forward to continuing in that combined format. The chance to get together and be together is a nice change from where we've been. So welcome to everybody. We need to give a special thank you to the library today for opening up their doors to us this morning. We have a long history of holding these issues forums here, and we're grateful for them hosting us and being here, and also for opening back up this morning for our first time again. And I'd like to thank Melanie Huggins and her staff and team for doing that. Melanie, I don't know if you'd like to stand up and introduce yourself or say anything about the library and kind of what's going on here.
Sure. I'm really smiling. Really good. So good to see you all in person here. It's just really great to have people in the building again. You're our test group. You're our first in-person meeting that we're hosting, and it couldn't be a topic that I care more about than arts and culture in this community. So thank you all for being here. So good to see your faces. Stick around, check out what's after it's over, and it's good to see you.
Great. Thank you again for your hospitality and for everything that y'all do for the chamber. The topic today is arts and the impact of arts in our community. And all great cities have a vibrant arts community. And Columbia is no exception to this. As a matter of fact, to use a sports analogy, I'd say we probably outpunch our weight class in this area. We have such a gifted and talented arts community that enjoys a great deal of support from our community. We've got 4 special guests with us today that really sort of scratch the surface of all the things that are happening in Columbia within our arts community. You know, if you think about all the ways that the arts impact our community, first of all, performing arts are a piece of it, but there's a whole lot of different ways that we see it. Everything from you know, the ballet, the city ballet, to the theater companies, and to the murals that we're starting to see on the sides of buildings that catch your attention. And on a personal level, I think it's great for us as citizens and residents to have this as something that impacts us. I mean, I know that on a personal level, you can see something that, or observe something or listen to something that makes you laugh, it makes you cry. It offers you a different perspective. How many times have we all sat there and thought, gosh, I hadn't thought about it in that way. And it improves our quality of life. It creates a community identity that I think is important for us in Columbia. I think you certainly see the importance of it and who we are and what we are. And that affects our quality of life for sure, but there also is a business component of it. And the reason that we feel like this is an important discussion today is that, you know, whether it's a source of jobs, whether it's folks going to restaurants after a performance of some sort, or come in and stay in hotels, a form of draw for tourists and tourism. It's an important part of our economy and our business climate here. And then I also think it's something that, as we discuss this, we need to look at it through a little bit of a different lens, that not only what is the arts community bringing to our community, but what does business need to do to support the arts, and recognizing the value that it provides us, and how can we step up. I know that we go to some of the performances or some of the events that take place, and you look at the program, and a lot of times there are you know, the top level of giving is maybe our local government or our county or something like that, and that's important for us to support them at that level. But there's a lot of room for us as a business community to step forward and support them as well, and recognizing the value that they're bringing to us. So with that in mind, I would like to introduce our esteemed guest today. Starting with Karen Magradey. She's the Assistant Director for the Koger Center for the Arts. That probably is the preeminent performing arts venue in Columbia, in the Columbia area. And Darion McCloud is title is the Storyteller and Artistic Director with NIA Theater Company. NIA. Okay, thank you for that correction. And then Lee Snelgrove is the Executive Director for One Columbia, which is a promoter and I guess aggregator of sorts for the activities that are taking place in Columbia, making sure that we're all aware from an awareness standpoint, and kind of creating some type of a venue that you can go to see all the many things that are taking place. And then William Starrett is the Artistic and Executive Director of the Columbia City Ballet, who I believe is celebrating 60 years this year. And so we're very grateful to each of you for being here and participating with us. And with that, I guess as a way of introduction, I would like for each of you just to, if you would, introduce yourselves and just talk for a minute about what your organization is, and the role that you see it playing in Columbia, and anything else you'd like to add to that. I will say before we get started on that, bit of housekeeping. We are, as I said, broadcasting this on Zoom and on Facebook Live. We will have a moment where we can do some questions after some of the discussion here. If you're tuned in on one of those venues, if you would please just ask a question on the chat function, and we've got some folks here that are kind of monitoring that, and we'll make sure that your questions get asked. So with that, again, thank you for being here today. And Karen, why don't we start with you?
My name is Karen Magradey, and I'm the Assistant Director for the Koger Center for the Arts. And I thank Mark and all of you for having us here today. I love to talk about the Koger Center. It's a fabulous place to work. You know, I was thinking about our importance to the community. I thought, what would Columbia be without the Koger Center? If there was an office building or a reading assembly. I love office buildings, but we wouldn't have a place for full-length ballets or opera performances. We wouldn't have any Broadway shows. You wouldn't have things like symphony orchestras that have this wonderful acoustical setting. So without that, Columbia would be a much less rich place to live. We provide a home for our local arts groups like McCloud, and we also bring in international artists that we couldn't see otherwise. Columbia is a vibrant city, and it's a growing city, and we add to that. Fortunate because we have so much to offer. As you mentioned, we have baseball and football, and great cost of living, wonderful outdoor opportunities, but we also bring in these kind of experiences that only a much larger city can typically offer. So we have an incredible value from that standpoint. We are bringing in with Marsalis and with Jazz Wilkins Center Orchestra this year. It's really jazz moving involved. Vanessa Williams will be here in September. Our Broadway season is fabulous. We have Lion King for 60 performances, which we're really looking forward to, and Stage and Waitress. We have our ballets back in. We have Nutcracker and Lovely Christmas Week out Nutcracker. So we're very excited about that. And we also have educational opportunities that I think are maybe not as well known, and we're a financial driver for the city of Columbia. So we add so much to the city of Columbia. We're so grateful to have people like all of these people on this panel that make us a wonderful city. We're happy to provide.
Thank you. Darion?
Hey, I'm Darion McCloud. I'm, as you heard, I'm a professional storyteller. I'm also a creative director, actor, writer, director with the Media Theater Company, amongst other things. So I'm glad to be here, man. Thanks for having us. I've worked a lot with the library here, well, almost every cultural institution in Columbia. I heard at a conference once that if your theater company has a different voice from any other theater company in the city, that means your theater company belongs. And that's who Nia is. We began 23 years ago. We actually began as a group of mostly young, budding Black actors, trying to create opportunities for more young, budding Black actors. And over time, that mission has grown, evolved into we create opportunities for audiences that don't get to hear the type of stories that we tell, and for people that don't get a chance to tell those type of stories. So that means we've worked with almost every population you can think about in the city. From homeless, to children, to teachers, to arts groups, to business groups, in some of the funkiest places, from tunnels to street corners, to libraries. Love the library. Hey, Melanie. Trusts, which is our we kind of birthed out of Trusts, our core groups kind of birthed out of Trusts. So we're just happy to be here, happy to be part of this discussion. Because to be totally honest, we're kind of the funky kids. Like we don't really fit any place. We're kind of on our own. We're niche. We're niche. So sometimes we feel, just to be totally honest, we feel a little ignored. But I call us we're the giant killers. We're postage size, we're tight, super small. All we do is, and since it's early morning, it's probably a family program, I'll clean it up. All we do is kick butt. But we're glad to be part of this discussion. Glad to enjoy the works of these other people, especially my man here to the left. Lee and I are planning some things. We got some things going on right now, actually. We got some things going on with the Nick, I see out there, that is. Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks, we'll talk more.
Darion, quick question. Nia is, what does the name represent?
Nia is a key Swahili word, which means purpose. So, you know, the Kwanzaa celebration. Nia is the 5th day of Kwanzaa. So our purpose is to share art. We have tons of little catchphrases. But one of our catchphrases is, art makes everything better. And you were kind of saying that earlier. Whether it's economics, whether it's academics, whether it's interpersonal relationships, whether it's macro, micro, we believe that art makes everything better. And so that's our purpose. Share art the way we do. Usually that's through storytelling and theater, but we're planning movie nights for communities, and we're opening up spaces for communities to come in, along with One Columbia to come in, and we try to be resources. So yeah, thanks for that question.
Right.
Great question.
Just real quick, we do have folks that are tuned in virtually. If y'all will make sure that your microphones are close enough so that we can hear you all, obviously you're here, but if we want to make sure everybody else has a benefit of hearing these wise words. So, Lee?
Okay, yeah, I'm Lee Snelgrove. I'm the director of One Columbia for Arts and Culture, and my organization is kind of, we're essentially working as the de facto Office of Cultural Affairs for the city. City government here does not have an Office of Cultural Affairs, and we were set up to fill that role. We are a nonprofit, and we receive a good bit of our funding from the city of Columbia to do the work we do. It is about promotion. We are trying to tell the story of all of the work of these folks and make sure that people in Columbia and outside of Columbia know that Columbia is a place for arts and creativity. A lot of things we've done over the years, you know, we send out a weekly email, we have a website with all the listings of activities. But we also are responsible for facilitating much of the public art you've seen on the city's behalf, and in some cases with private partners or semi-private partners like the Richland Library. We helped create the Office of Poet Laureate for the city, and that role has taken our very public art forum where he's the poet laureate we currently have, Ed Madden, has really brought poetry to people. We've worked over the last several years on a comprehensive plan for arts and culture, which we call Amplify, that all of these folks were willing to participate in. And we did extensive research, worked with lots of different communities, mostly non-arts communities, to find out what kinds of things people hope to see in their city, what kinds of things would add to their sense of vibrancy and belonging in the city. And we're now working to sort of shift that to implementation stage. And some of those are policy-oriented things, and some of those are physical things that we think we can create. And then, as Darion said, we've taken on a space in North Columbia, 1013 Duke Avenue, new space that we have just started there, working with partner organizations like Darion, the Jasper Project and the Children's Theater to create, to keep a cultural space in the North Columbia area and really allow that community to express itself through the arts, be a resource for them to really showcase what they may already be doing in terms of culture. And that's been a fundamental guiding principle of One Columbia over the last several years is this concept of cultural equity, that all people that live in this city deserve to have access to culture. That could mean that they go to a quilting group or they're in a book club, that they can get to their library when they need to. But it's also about, making sure that the organizations that we have are supported and that they can offer the accessible experience so people can enjoy that. And we can all build what Columbia's culture is together as a city.
Right. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm William Starrett, Executive and Artistic Director of Columbia City Ballet. And as you mentioned, we're celebrating our 60th anniversary. I'm the second director in our company's history. This is my 35th year directing the ballet company. I've been involved with the dance scene in Columbia since 1977. And I've been living here for 35 years. Columbia City Ballet has a very exciting season lined up. We're doing Dracula, which we didn't get to do last year. And of course, a 10-city tour of Nutcracker. And then we're doing the full-length Swan Lake, partnering with the Philharmonic. They'll be the full orchestra. And then we're ending with a world premiere of Motown, which continues our mission of inclusion. And all white people are going to admit they love Motown music. So I'm going to bring all of us together, and we're going to celebrate. We've had a huge commitment to diversity since the early 80s, and we're just going to continue that. We have an extensive education and outreach program. We reach 15,000 children a year. I'm also the arts correspondent for Watch Fox News, so I get to cover all the arts. I've been doing this for about 7 years, so I do have a great appreciation and realization of the incredible artists we have in town, and worked with all these terrific people, and just really happy to be here. Forum is so important. I think there's a lot of misconceptions about the arts and how they should be funded and how they are funded, and financial support of the arts is always a big concern, but also making sure it's accessible to everyone. It's all part of the same process. So thank you for having us this morning.
Great, thank you. I guess it's still the topic of the day, COVID, and seems like it's not willing to go quietly into the night. I'm curious how, I think we're all wondering how y'all fared during the last 18 months or so, and what do you see kind of in the future? How negatively impacted were you? And is there ongoing concerns, and how do you deal with it and things like that? Please.
Well, we keep saying it's a fluid situation. We use that term a ton this year. It's evolving. So I really am not sure what the year's going to bring to us. I hope better times. We suffered a 20% budget cut from the University of South Carolina, and we saw a 69% reduction in earned income for last year. So it was quite a hit to us. We obviously had a great reduction in our rental. We were limited to holding about under 600 people per performance in our facility. We normally have over 2,200. So, but we wanted to keep people safe. We spent a great deal of time developing a COVID safety program, a lot of research and thought went into it. And sometimes people aren't happy with it, but we felt it kept them safe. So we could operate safely for the people backstage and front of house. So, and as with every awful situation, there is bright side. We developed live streaming capability, which we did not have before. Columbia Classical Ballet was our first sort of experimental test case, and they did Copelia, and it was right before it was really shut down. And it went all over the world. People in Japan that had never heard of Columbia, South Carolina, were watching a performance in the Koger Center stage. And we were able to provide this at cost. We felt it's an important thing to offer the community and the organizations that use our facility. And so it's a great setup, and we were able to continue to do that. So if you can't come in person, we can live stream to your audience members and get your new audience. We also did some new ventures for us. We did a performance in Central Park. One of the shows we had to cancel was American Paris. And so we got the American Paris Gene Kelly movie, and we showed it out there. And then for the live component, we had Mark Rappa, I think a lot of you know, with College Jazz, brought his little big band, and they played Gershwin-inspired music before the show. And we had clips from the Moving Institute at USC from 1930s Paris, so it's a great night. And we did Live on Lincoln, which was did twice this last year, a fall and spring performance. And we had dinner on Lincoln Street, on the cobblestones of Lincoln Street, and we had performances by local arts groups, and the proceeds went to help support them, and it gave them exposure to people that maybe had never seen opera before. And went, oh, that's great, I would like to see that. So, so it did provide opportunity for us, as well as certainly its challenges. We're hoping this is a more normal year, as we all hope. So, fingers crossed.
Right, thank you. And please, I'll tell you one other thing that I'd like for you to incorporate into your answers on this would be, are there things that occurred during the last 12 or 18 months that y'all were doing that you might say, you know, this ended up being something really cool or something we really like that we'd like to carry forward, even once we maybe move beyond some of the protocols and things like that. So, Terry?
Yes, so am I on? I'm not on. Is this thing on? All right, here we go. So yeah, we like most people, we explore streaming, and through our multiple partnerships, actually with the library and one Columbia 3 times. So one of the things we did was everything kind of shrunk. So when we were streaming, it was instead of 8, 9 people, it was 1 or 2 people. You know, it's easy to control, easy to keep safe, easy to get in almost any type of space. Luckily, we're built to be nimble anyway. We're not, you know, we're not brick and mortar. Our membership fluxes and flows. So we're kind of built to be nimble, but it still hurt a lot. We lost, just like everybody else, we lost revenue, we lost opportunities. But one of the things, this is not, for us, there was an addition by subtraction. It made me think about some of the things that we were doing. And just to be totally honest, we were doing too much. We're doing too much. And we needed to pull back on some things and kind of reevaluate or figure out how to do them better. So we did some of that. We definitely figured out, okay, we didn't really lose anything. I think we just we figured out how to do some things better. We do want to take the streaming forward, but I'm just gonna be honest. performers, we're in the people gathering business. You know, as y'all probably figured out, I am not an introvert. You know, I know it's cool to be all, no, that ain't me. I think deeply, but I love seeing people. I love sharing. I love performing. We're in the people gathering business. So we couldn't gather. We couldn't gather for rehearsals. You know, so it really, there was a psychological aspect to it. So when we came back in June, we did 2 performances for families, and we had scheduled 2 performances for adults. One of them got rained out because we were outside, because to be COVID safe and friendly and everything. So we eventually actually had to move one of the adult shows inside. So we actually wound up doing 3. It was great and all that. But I must admit, I underestimated the impact that the isolation would and did have on my actors and on myself also. You know, performing is demanding, mentally, physically, psychologically. I think we're seeing a good example of that right now, what the athletes are doing, Simone Biles, and there are things, they're, you know, old school says, you guys aren't supposed to know that. You know, if we show up to the show and you're sick and all, the show must go on. The show must go on. And you do that, but at the same time, we had to take into account, I had a few actors in that show, they were all brilliant, and we had a great time, everybody came through. But we had a few people who were struggling a little bit because COVID, you know, isolation, they, mentally, they maybe felt like they weren't as sharp as they had been a year and a half ago as practice. You know, even, like I said, initially coming together, our first rehearsal, you know, half of us are masked and half of us are not, and half of us are standing. It was a lot of, there's still a lot of stuff to figure out. And for performers and everybody, audience, everybody, we're trying to figure out, okay, we had to be outside. We had to protect our audience, like they said, gotta be safe. So there was a lot of stuff, and we're still learning. We're still learning, but I think one thing, maybe we're a little kinder to each other. I know that's not a hard fact, but that's the truth. Maybe we're a little more understanding, at least sympathetic, if not empathetic, to people struggling a little bit, and performers. Because performers are lies, you know, like I said, the show must go on, we need to get over that, blah, blah, blah. Now it's like, no, you know, take your time. Do your thing, you know, get better. So I think I answered your question.
You did.
Okay.
You did very much. Thank you.
Good.
Well, Columbia was in an interesting position because, you know, we serve these other organizations, we serve artists. And so we had some opportunities, and we also had to pivot very quickly. Right as things shut down, we had to revamp our website quickly. Luckily, the people we work with on that were able to help us, because they were experiencing it throughout the country with other organizations they deal with. We had to give people accurate information on closings or requirements of attending that performance and things like that we had to collect. And then because things were during the firm shutdown, we delivered chalk to like 100 families, just sidewalk chalk, so that parents had something to do with their kids, artistic. And we delivered it throughout the Midlands. And that was 3 people that delivered 100 deliveries of chalk, and I have new respect for delivering that. We also were able to create a program with the CCCF and the Knight Foundation to give out Artist Emergency Fund grants. Those were $2,000 grants to 40 artists, working artists in the Columbia area, to help them survive. It was really to help them pay rent, whatever they needed. If they needed health insurance, some used it to pivot their own artistic practice into something where they could continue to make money. Others just used it simply for food or rent so that they could survive because they lost all their income. We developed a program with the Free Times, the Richland Library, and an organization called CNSC called the 1 or 2 sessions. And that was, again, to kind of help musicians make up some of the lost revenue from lack of gigs, and paid them $150 each performer to perform for a 3-minute video that would then go on the free comps and you know, celebrate that we still had music happening in the city. We created a cultural delivery service where we were just trying to daily let people know about something going on in the cultural community. It didn't always have to be in Columbia, but just things that were happening, give them more insight so they could still continuously experience culture even when they were sitting at home alone in their own home. And we developed the Duke space during this time and took advantage of that opportunity. And over the year and a half, we've also even public art and had 9 new pieces of public art facilitated. And that's all of the staff of 2 people that Columbia been working on. So it has been very busy and very difficult, I think, for us among all the arts organizations to figure out. That's in the face of budget cuts, budget transitions, because, you know, luckily there have been some rescue funds available to organizations, but it's cobbling it together. That's very complicated, very hard on every organization. I think, you know, all that to say is, so there have been opportunities. We've created things that we will likely continue. We expect to continue the 1 or 2 series in a modified form because we had a live event, people loved it, it worked out really well, and we hope to continue that and keep supporting musicians in that way. But we also know that, like, you know, we think that, and sort of what I've been sort of thinking a lot about is, and then I think there's been research done and there's a lot of evidence of this. If there was more support for the arts community overall, it would help everybody bounce back tremendously. It would obviously help restaurant and accommodations industry, hospitality industry bounce back. It would help us all feel a part of something again, and we could potentially get back to some semblance of normal. But if not supported, then the arts industry is going to lag way behind because it's going to continue to struggle longer. And then that's going to, you know, have those ripple effects on those other industries and continue to prevent them from bouncing back. So it's sort of like if we can get out ahead of it and really provide some different kinds of support, attendance, advocacy, you know, just donations to these organizations, we're going to see a lot more progress, I think, back to some semblance of a revived community. Right.
So the Columbia City Ballet is the largest employer of artists in the state of South Carolina. We're the largest performing arts organization. So from Thursday to Saturday, we lost 11 tours and $50,000. So our budget dropped 40% and our administrative staff went from 7 to 3. And I was determined, it was our 60th anniversary, that we were going to still perform. We had to cancel our Dracula. We're on a skeleton crew and skeleton funding. Dancers, you know, they maybe get to dance from 20 to 40, so maybe 20 years of their career, and I was not going to let them miss one of those 20 years. So I was determined that we were going to perform, and I couldn't wrap my head around the Nutcracker with masks on, with long skirts, but I saw pictures from the 1920s when the Spanish flu that they were masked, and so I staged our Nutcracker in 1920 with the Roaring 20s, and we wore our Great Gatsby costumes, and it was real colorful and kicky, and I changed the choreography and on with the show. And so a lot of the city council members didn't think we'd perform at all, but what I did is we partnered with the Koger Center, and they helped us with our budgets, and we were able to, instead of do 6 performances here, we did 8, and we sold out 6 of the 8. So then we went on to do our off-the-wall performance and the Beatles and Cinderella. So it was very difficult on the dancers. We had to hire extra staff. We had to keep the dancers separated. So they usually take 1 class together to warm up in the morning, but we had to do separated by 3. So I had to pick 3 instructors every morning. We rehearsed everything in smaller groups. Everyone had to have their, they were tested twice a week. But on with the show. So we all wore masks. We had to create 250 masks. Every dancer wore 2 masks all the time. One was a protective mask, one was a decorative costume mask. So we were able to perform. So that was really, really important. Unfortunately, you know, we're very concerned about restaurants, but the way the city and the county have decided to fund the artists is through restaurant tax. And so the restaurants are not supported. So everything goes downhill. So we're all talking about the restaurants, but the artists completely suffered. So all of our funding was extremely cut. And so restaurants are incredibly important, but so is the arts. And especially as an employer of artists, you know, these are not high school girls running around in tutus. These are people with mortgages and families and children. And so it was a lot of pressure on me, a lot of pressure on our staff. And so we need to figure out a substantial way of continuing to support the arts in our community, especially through difficult times like this. So we all came together, we got to perform when we're planning our full season. You know, we're all looking at the Delta variants right now. We talked to our lawyers and they have informed me that I need to insist that every dancer and every staff member and everyone affiliated with the ballet company, that if you're going to be a part of the season next year, you have to be vaccinated. And they say I'm completely within my legal rights to support that. So that is a letter that's going out today. So it continues to be a challenge, but you know, if it's not worthwhile, it's not challenging. So it's important that we continue to serve the community and support our artists. And it does bring us together and it does bring creativity. So thank you.
Right, thank you.
I want to emphasize two things that William and Darion and Karen have mentioned. Like, we are all part of an ecosystem in the city. I mean, as you said, you know, the lack of hospitality tax affected the arts community. Not having the arts community affected the restaurants. It's all connected. And so we have to be supportive of everybody working within that ecosystem. And as you can see, even in the light of a pandemic, artists have to create. They have to do that. That is what they're designed to do. That is what they've chosen to do. And, you know, not being able to do that has psychological impacts, but it also, you know, they'll find a way. I mean, they'll stream it. They'll find some other way to bring that artwork to people. Even in the face of financial adversity, they want to do that. And with just some support, with some additional, you know, eyes on them, with some additional ticket sales, like they can do much more, and we can have more. And you know, I don't want it to always be about the financials of it. It is a lot about the financials right now because that's the conundrum we're in. But it is also just advocacy and just saying this is important that this city have this, and telling friends, hey, Columbia is fortunate to have this. We need to continue to support it. Telling people outside the city, hey, you know, you might go to Charlotte to see the Van Gogh experience. You know what you should also do is come to the Art Museum or come to a show at the Koger Center. You know, travel here, it is worth it. You will be surprised at what we have. You will want to come back after you come once. I mean, telling people like that, continuing to grow our reputation for this is going to help everyone.
Lee, that's a great point. And listening to everybody, it makes you appreciate the show must go on and the creativity. No surprise there that comes from all of y'all's organizations and others to figure out ways to do that. And the other thing, Lee, that you said earlier that I thought was very pertinent was we reference it a lot of times as an arts community. You referenced it as an arts industry, which is brings a level of commerce and business into the discussion that is, I think the point, when you think about it through an arts industry, the points you just made, I thought were really good.
It is. I mean, these people, this is their career. I mean, not all of them can make it a full-time career, but it is their career, whether it's an arts business, a studio, a gallery, you know, a workshop series, you know, theater performance that charge for tickets, or ballet, you know, and as William said, his dancers are professional dancers. I mean, they're making that their livelihood. It is an industry. It is also about community. I mean, I think they go hand in hand. A lot of times the arts community is the best source for how you tap into a community. You know, how people experience culture is sometimes just about getting together, and it doesn't have to be about the business aspect of it, but you know, it is both. I mean, we want to support our artists to allow them to make a career here and live here and work here, and we want to bring in tourists to let people know how great Columbia is. And we also just want to serve the people and you know, have a free performance for people in the backyard and figure out the economics of that so that we can pay the actors, but still give that art to people that deserve to be a part of it.
Before we
completely get off. I know that somebody said was the money side of it is kind of front and center right now, just because of what we've been through. And before we kind of leave that and get back to more of the programming and things like that, I'd like to hear a little bit from each of you about what are your sources of funding? You know, the Koger Center is largely, I think, at least perception tied to the university. Others, where are the sources of funding, and how do you see that going forward?
As you said, we are fortunate to be supported by the University of South Carolina. We never take that for granted. That said, when you come to the Koger Center and you buy a ticket, I think people don't realize only $2 of that ticket comes to us. So you're always in search of funding because it's a large building. It takes a lot of money to keep it running, and it takes a lot of so we are exploring other sources of income. Grants, we work like crazy to fully book our spaces. We're repurposing our front lawn into a performance space this year, so we'll be able to offer more outdoor performing experiences. Our large person room, we're reconfiguring, so that will be more conducive to performances and meetings. We work very, very hard to try and supplement that budget. So, but as I said, we are fortunate to have that base to build on.
Well, me is a little bit different. We began, I guess, more as a passion project. And when we first began, I had a day gig. So initially, Nia, well, not initially, still, Nia is financed primarily by me, but not solely by me. We have a lot of in-kind, we have a lot of partnerships, we have a lot of just straight up donors also. But we are a for-profit business because, like I said, we're super nimble. Literally, we have been scheduled to perform in a venue. The venue has closed down. The week that we're open to perform, we've been able to figure out how to continue performances elsewhere in that same week. And that's because we don't have a lot of layers of bureaucracy. It's kind of me. So when you get angry with Nia, it's my fault, you know. But we have evolved over the years where Nia has one full-time employee. You're looking at him. I'm a little angry with his boss because he needs a raise. But we do a lot of grant writing. We do ticketed events, but we also do a lot of free events. So we have to figure out how to do that, like partnering with One Columbia. Like I said, we just did 3 shows. We're scheduled to 4, but we're not brick and mortar, so we don't have utilities every week or every month. We have insurance and things like that. But we figure a way out. You know, creativity, we're kind of quasi-professional. We have professionals in the company, but part of our mission is teaching. So we always have neophytes in the company too. And our professionals are very generous. Sometimes they get paid, sometimes they don't. That's just the truth. But we still provide professional caliber performances. So we're still figuring things out, to be totally honest. Lee spoke about the granting during the pandemic. Without that, we wouldn't have made it. We wouldn't have made it. Me personally, just not even as arts agency, just me personally, Darion, the artist, I wouldn't have made it. I couldn't work. I couldn't work for months. And then in the middle of the pandemic, I chose to have a stroke, you know, just because I like to add a little drama to the situation. So I was literally on my back for months. And due to a lot of hard work through One Columbia, the South Carolina Arts Commission, and some other smaller agencies that really pitched in and offered us artists a lifeline. But like Lee said, that some of that went to literally pay my rent, and feed my family. And some of that went to purchasing an O-ring, a light, so I could do streaming events and have proper light or better light. Some of that went to purchasing better computer equipment, cables. I got cables for days because I had to figure out how to make my phone a camera, how to make my pad a camera, all these different things. So funding, we're literally still figuring out. We partner with a lot of people. We've had just different fiscal agents for different projects. And some of it's just straight up, just ticketed events, or we're contracted by school districts or theater spaces or libraries or whatever. So we're still figuring out. I call it the hustle. We hustle.
Thank you.
One Columbia is, I think, 90 to 95% funded by the city, at least our operating costs are. We make up the rest with some administrative fees that we get paid for projects we're a part of. We also, all the public art we do is at some combination of private and sometimes, public collaboration funding. So, for example, we work with the Women's Rights Empowerment Network and Historic Columbia, and they raised the money to pay for a sculpture that then we facilitated and did the work on. And in that case, One Columbia doesn't receive any extra funds from that. We contribute because we're funded by the city. We contribute our efforts in facilitating those public art projects. It's just part of what we do on the city's behalf. And then, and then all these partnerships we're working to mutually benefit both organizations, and we're figuring out ways to make that happen. So the funding comes in a lot of different directions. We are currently looking to have the city recognize us officially as a local arts agency. It may come to as a surprise that we are not currently recognized like that, and therefore ineligible. Columbia as a whole is ineligible for some funding that goes directly towards local arts agencies. So we're hoping that if the city council would recognize us that way, then we could bring more money into the ecosystem for everyone, because we'd be able to access funds that go to other cities that have similar organizations and offices of cultural affairs. So we're doing what we can to expand the ecosystem for everyone.
Columbia City Ballet is, of course, nonprofit. Our budget is 1.6 million, and we receive less than 14% of our budget from public funding. In our small office, we raise personally from private donors over $400,000. We sell over $850,000 a year to tickets to ballet in the Deep South, which is just unbelievable. And it's way too high for a nonprofit. As a nonprofit, it's important to stay nonprofit because of education. We reach 15,000 children a year, and then to keep the art accessible. So what's so important is that we are a nonprofit organization, that a family of four can come at a really reasonable price. Not like a Broadway show these days, tickets are hundreds of dollars. So that's our main mission, that a family can come and afford to experience the Columbia City Ballet. So I'm also the executive director, because we can't afford both. And we turn over every single rock. So corporate funding, individual giving, donations, silent auctions, galas, public funding, fundraising events, every single rock I can turn over to try to fund and pay for the dancers and the company to continue. So that's how we're funded, everything we can figure out.
I understand, great.
I'll pass a hat right now.
Let's go to the audience. Is there any questions from the group that's with us today, or are there any questions through the? Okay, good. We're closing in on our time. I would like to thank all of you for being here.
Mark.
Hey, Henry.
Yeah, Lee, you mentioned that there are the funding model is a great challenge for arts in the Midlands. Are there funding models out there that work in other cities, and what would those models be?
I think the arts industry as a whole struggles. I mean, because of the sort of public value we place on it. I mean, this misconception that the arts are, a pastime. And so, other countries that maybe have the availability to support more through public funding, because it's important to do as that, jurisdiction. But so there are models like that where there's that system. There's also the, large patron model where people just give more money to the arts because it's important to do. Columbia, I don't think has that. We don't have a huge patron system. We have some that are willing to give regularly and often. But there's still a lot of untapped potential in Columbia for people to really support this and understand why they should support this. What we I think could do better in Columbia is build collaborations, do some innovative work that then allows for more funding to come from either the federal sources or the large foundational sources. The private foundations that really support arts and culture throughout other cities may not realize yet that they should be investing here as well. And building those networks is hard. Building the connections to the federal sources and getting that attention from them is difficult and needs advocacy work done by politicians, by business folks. So, there's a lot of untapped potential for Columbia to increase the diversity of support that the arts community has. We are very reliant on hospitality tax, accommodations tax from the county, city, and we're dependent on a small set of corporations, and we need to grow that. And we also need to just convince people that spending money with the arts organizations is important. That if they want to have a place that they want to live, visit, they need to help us. They need to buy a ticket and attend and give a donation and help a capital project and other things.
Can I just add that an example is our current administration just raised the national support of the arts by the largest it's ever been increased. So it went from $150 million a year to $200 million a year. But let me give you an example. That's the United States. Of all the arts organizations, it's $200 million that they give to every museum, in the whole country, including Alaska, where the small country of England gives $1 billion annually to the arts. So that is the misconception and the way that we view arts in our country. So there has to be a huge reevaluation of the importance and how we fund and look at the arts. So England's got it, and all the American dancers are dancing in England because they're supported. So we need to rethink the importance of the arts and how we support it.
There's been a couple articles recently published about the convention center expansion and the potential economic impact. Talk about how that could positively impact the arts community here in Columbia.
Okay, I mean, my perception of that is yes, it would help us. I mean, we work closely with Experience Columbia to tell the story of Columbia. While the convention center is not necessarily a solely arts-oriented venue, arts activities, cultural activities happen there. Some of these conferences, they hire artists to do different work as part of their visit, and it just puts more eyes on Columbia as a whole. So having more people here, those people are going to attend things, they're going to go to restaurants, they're going to go to bars, they're going to enjoy the city in different ways, and we can take advantage of that. I mean, there's great, been arts involvement in some of the bigger activities, the solar eclipse, the NCAA basketball game. And if you can expand the convention center, you can expand the number of hotels we have, then of course you can expand the arts community as well.
And if I could piggyback on that, a group like mine, an agency like mine, we do some macro events, we do some really big events, but most of our primary audiences, our primary events, they're smaller. They're neighborhoods, they're communities. So it's cool when anything happens, but that's macro. So like my concern is, I'm usually right now, because we're together right now, I'm working with a lot of people right now, but We're in North Columbia, in Eau Claire specifically. That's a community I grew up in. One of the reasons we wanted to be there, have a headquarters there. Like I said, we're not brick and mortar, so we don't have one building. We have kind of little pockets that we're around in the city. There are no theaters over there. There are no galleries over there. There's no art spaces over there. But there are people over there. There are communities. You know, there's families. And like I said, we just did 3 shows and they were lovely, well attended. It was great. And we're trying to blow that space up. We're trying to have people in there all the time. We're trying to have so many people there that we have to go to whoever's got money and say, hey, we need another. So the convention center is good because it does bring a lot of attention, a lot of money. But I really want us to think about there are levels to this thing. So, and to William's point, there's limited resources. $200 million for a country of 300 million plus. And the areas that all the benefits for art makes everything better. But there are areas where art barely gets to get into, barely gets to be present. So when we're thinking about the convention center, I'd love us to also think about the neighborhood dance group, you know, the small theaters, the clubs even, you know, how do we take care of them also? How do we make sure that they serve? Because most people can access that. And I think one of the things, Columbia, I think we could do a better job of growing our audience, starting from these small levels, so we get to some of these bigger organizations. We already have built-in demand. Art becomes, I don't want to say a habit, but we're accustomed to going to dances and to performances and to music recitals. And it doesn't matter. There's so much of this city that is on the sideline. There's so much audience that is on the sideline. They're not accustomed to being offered art. They're not accustomed to participating in art. They're not accustomed to consuming art. And as a city, once we figure out that key, like Mark, you said something earlier, I use all the time. We punch above our weight all the time. I can't tell you how many friends I've had from Atlanta, from New York, from LA, come in town for a weekend, and we had something going on. Like, yo, you guys are doing that? And I'm like, yeah. But I'm waiting for the day when more of us right here in Columbia, in South Carolina, support that work to make it easier for, like I said, these small organizations like myself and these larger organizations like the Koger Center and the Ballet, and of course the arts administrators. I'm rambling, I'm sorry, but I really think we got something here. And it is really untapped. As good as it is, we got a lot of room to grow. Everything ain't great, of course, but we got some greatness here. So shut up.
We are, unfortunately, we're bumping up against our time, and thank you, each of you, for not only being here this morning, but for the leadership that you provide within the arts community and the arts industry. And hopefully maybe this has helped bring some exposure and some information to folks that maybe coming out of a COVID period have not paid attention to the arts over this period of time. Will re-engage, and others who've not been engaged that will engage. And so thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your information and advocating for your group and for the arts community as a whole. Thank you. We also would like to thank our sponsors today, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Midlands Big, Sonic Quick, Sun Solutions, and of course the Richland County Library. We continue to have these issues forums going forward monthly. Our next one will be somewhat related and pertinent and relevant to today's conversation. We'll have the candidates for Columbia City Council this fall in a forum, and hopefully you will be able to either be here in person or be here virtually with us the first Tuesday in September. And
Not to steal your thunder on that, but we are having a specific one to arts as well for the candidates and for the mayoral candidates. So our city council one is on September 2nd at the Koger Center, and our mayoral one is on September 8th at the Koger Center. And both will be live streamed too, so folks can join in. They don't have to attend in person if it's scary to do so. But we'll have plenty of seats.
thank you. Thank you. And with that in mind, we're up on our time. Thank you all for being here, and thank you for your support of the chamber. And if there's anything that we can do, please reach out to Carl or Henry or Susan or myself or others. We're here for you. Thank you.